Western governments race to rescue diplomats and citizens trapped in Sudan as the fighting in Khartoum continues. The Italian government says it's seeing a huge increase in the number of migrants risking their lives to cross the Mediterranean in small boats. Votes are being cast in 4 municipalities in northern Kosovo, but turnout's expected to be low, with the main Serb party declaring a boycott. Evacuations of foreign nationals caught in Sudan's deadly fighting are intensifying despite a promised ceasefire. The evacuations have been complicated by ongoing clashes. A French national was shot and injured by a sniper when an embassy convoy was attacked. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak tweeted that British diplomats and their families have been evacuated in a complex and rapid British military operation. US President Joe Biden tweeted, "On my orders, the United States military extracted US government personnel from Khartoum." As Saudi and foreign nationals evacuated from Sudan arrived in Jeddah, there were appeals for peace and prayers for anyone still caught up in the conflict.
Rinnovo il mio appello affinché cessi al più presto la violenza, sia ripresa la strada del dialogo. Invito tutti a pregare per I nostri fratelli e sorelle sudanesi.
But on Sudan's lawless streets, scarred by more than a week of fighting, there was little sign of an end to the violent power struggle that has claimed hundreds of lives. And for any foreign nationals remaining in the country, dwindling hopes of rescue. Sunday morning, and a rescue ship arrives in the Italian port of Bari. Ocean Viking is operated by NGO SOS Méditerranée, dedicated to rescue those who attempt to cross the sea in small boats. Coming ashore, 29 people who were rescued from a ship that was sinking off Malta. They come from Bangladesh and Sudan. War is fueling the flow of migrants. Official Italian government migration figures comparing the first 4 months of the last 3 years show a dramatic increase in 2023. Around the coast in the Calabrian port of Roccella Ionica, Saturday evening saw new arrivals, 90 migrants who've been in a 20-metre sailing boat for 4 days. 2,000 migrants have arrived at this small port in 2023 alone. A polling station and ballot boxes, but very few voters in northern Kosovo. Votes are being cast in 4 municipalities, almost 45,000 voters and 11 candidates in a poll held under the watchful eye of police and international monitors. But the president of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, says the area is overwhelmingly Serb and they'll boycott the vote. The headline says Pristina wants a Kosovo without Serbs. Deep divisions in a region that separated from Serbia in 2008.
Pa znate kako, odlučila sam se jer ovo su izbori kao I svaki ostali što su bili do sada. Ako ne učestvujemo, čemu bi se nadali?
Ovi izbori nisu trebali da budu, trebali su da budu odloženi za neko drugo buduće vreme. Mjesec, 2, 3 mjeseca. Da nije pravo vreme za izbore.
The main party representing Serbs, the Serb Line, says it won't recognise the legitimacy of local institutions based on a vote with a very low turnout.
The last few months have been a real test. At the moment, a large part of our production is still in the warehouse because the price in Bulgaria for sunflower seeds last few months was very lower than the production price for that seed for us.
Like this Bulgarian cereal farmer, many farmers in Eastern Europe have delayed selling their production while waiting for prices to rise. But with the approach of the harvest, time is running out. They have been demonstrating for several weeks to demand more control over Ukrainian grain exports, considered responsible for the fall in prices. They denounced the ineffectiveness of the solidarity corridors, the tax-free transit routes for Ukrainian goods on roads, rails and in European ports. grain intended for the other markets and emerging countries, but which finally flooded the countries bordering Ukraine. Farmers say they support the transit of Ukrainian goods through Europe, but not at the expense of their local economy.
It's no problem for us to transit all that production, but at the moment, transit is not a real transit. It's stay here in Bulgaria.
In response to this protest, Bulgaria, Hungary and Slovakia have announced bans on Ukrainian grain imports until the end of June. They want to be able to control the amount of Ukrainian goods that enter their markets, for example with sealed containers or trucks. Measures contrary to European law.
An individual member state cannot unilaterally impose trade restriction on a third party. In the European Union, the competence to deal with trade policy and to adopt trade measures lies exclusively with the European Union and with the European Commission.
To appease the countries affected, the EU has offered to provide more than €150 million in emergency aid to farmers. Romania and Poland have now suspended the ban on the transit of Ukrainian grain, after the EU said any aid would be dependent on the withdrawal of restrictions.
The Ukrainian armed forces have been actively preparing at home and abroad for a big push. New units are being trained for a major counteroffensive. But big questions remain over where and when. Some politicians and military experts predict a strike towards the Sea of Azov, potentially splitting occupied areas while cutting routes to Crimea. Others suggest targeting Russian flanks in Luhansk or Kherson. The recent leak of Pentagon documents showed Western experts expecting a push in late April, May or June. But that leak in itself may force a change of plans.
The Russians now know how deep and with what means the American intelligence services can look into the Russian planning and Russian command and control structure. And they might adjust, for example, their codes or their encryption to prevent that. If that happens, and if Western intelligence at the time of the counteroffensive is less precise than it used to be, that would be a bad thing for Ukrainians.
Russia's strengthening its defences along the entire 800-kilometre front line. Western experts doubt the Ukrainian counteroffensive will bring the war to an end this year, but the operation could prove decisive.
If they've achieved significant success, then I think they'll be in a position to force the Russians to the table and perhaps extract some kind of concessions, particularly if Crimea is threatened. Putin really won't want to lose Crimea. But if the Ukrainians haven't achieved much success, then I think they'll be facing a lot more pressure from their allies, who are really at the limit, I think, now, or approaching the limit of what they're willing to give in terms of assistance and equipment. And so Ukraine will probably face a lot more pressure to find some kind of status quo ceasefire.
In Ukraine, the medical faculty in Lviv is once again hosting these students from India in their 5th year of medical school. Many left when the war started and are now returning to finish their studies. To drop out would mean losing the last 4 years of training and having spent €4,500 a year on university fees without getting a diploma.
Different feeling, because for the first time in life we were experiencing this kind of thing. Like, more than us, our parents were worried back there in India because they didn't know exactly what's happening here, and everybody was so panicked.
The university has set up shelters to keep students safe in the event of an air raid alarm.
When foreign students came back, we care about their safety. We organized and equipped such shelters where students can go down in the case of alarm.
In India, medical courses can cost upwards of €10,000 per year.
We are in the 5th year. We don't have such choices to go other side as well. We won't be accepted because of the last year. We have internship only. We don't have the study so much. So these are the reasons by which we are here.
The Medical University of Lviv hosts students from more than 40 countries.
The former president of Peru, Alejandro Toledo, has been taken into custody in Lima after being extradited from the US. Toledo, who ruled for 5 years from 2001, is accused of pocketing tens of millions of dollars worth of bribes from a Brazilian company. He denies the charges and is set to stand trial. An international arrest warrant had been issued for him. An international field of 10,500 runners competed in the 36th Belgrade Marathon. Moroccan Lakgar Chakib won the men's race in a time of 2 hours 14 and 28 seconds. Ethiopia's Fain Gedeto Gameda won the women's race in 2 hours 30 and 30 seconds. The second fastest time ever recorded in the race. A 42-kilometre carnival of flowers has been snaking its way through the Dutch countryside. Colourful floats accompanied by brass bands made their way from Noordwijk to Haarlem. About 1,500 volunteers take part, drawing crowds of up to 1 million people. The annual parade dates back to 1947. In 2021, the flower parade was added to a UNESCO list of intangible heritage.